The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everyone to our first webinar in the Access Student Talent webinar series. This series is designed for small businesses interested in learning more about working with a college or university student. Our presenters for this webinar are Allison Mitchell, the Experiential Learning Outreach Coordinator at the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce, and myself, Aparna Gupta, the Experiential Learning Marketing Assistant.
Hi everyone, like Aparna said, my name is Allison Mitchell. I've been here with the Chamber for a little over 3 months. Prior to being with the Chamber, I spent a number of years in human resources and recruitment, which is where I developed a keen interest in helping people, particularly students, prepare for their careers. After my time in recruitment, I led a local charitable organization that provides career exploration programming to youth locally. I'm really excited to be working on this new initiative with the Chamber that helps to connect the business community with students.
And I am Aparna Gupta. I am a co-op student from the University of Waterloo. I am in my 3rd year of psychology and business. And this is my 3rd co-op placement. My previous co-op placements have also been in marketing roles, and I have been working at the Chamber this term creating marketing materials with Allison for this project. Now for some housekeeping items. All attendees are in listen-only mode. All handouts are available in the control panel. This includes slides from today's webinar, slides from today's presentation, and a copy of our one-pager. We would like you to ask questions throughout the webinar and leave them in the question box. The questions will be answered at the end of the webinar, and all attendees will receive a recorded copy of the webinar after this event. Just to go over the agenda for today, so we will start with an introduction and some housekeeping, followed by the learning objectives, a presentation from Allison, a question and answer period, and then a conclusion, and then you'll receive a copy of our webinar. We will also have a follow feedback survey that will launch immediately after the webinar. We ask you to please fill it out, as we'd love to hear from you and hear about how this webinar is going so far. For the learning objectives today, throughout this webinar, we will be providing you with an introduction to the initiative and answer the following questions. What is the Chamber's new Access Student Talent Initiative, and who are our partners? How does the Chamber help make it easier for small businesses to connect with post-secondary students? And in what ways can your business engage with post-secondary students? And then how can your business benefit from working with a post-secondary student? Now over to Allison.
Hi again, everyone. I'm happy to be sharing the new initiative that the Chamber is piloting. For this project, we are working in partnership with the University of Waterloo, Wilfrid Laurier University, and Conestoga College. The project is being funded by the Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development Career Ready Fund. The goal of the Access Student Talent Project is to help small businesses to more easily connect with the post-secondary students for co-op and non-co-op experiential learning opportunities. In terms of the businesses that we are working with in this project, we are targeting small businesses that are up to 50 employees. We are targeting businesses who are not tech startups, as they are well supported in the tech community. We are working with businesses who are not already engaged with the University of Waterloo, Wilfrid Laurier University, or Conestoga College and haven't been engaged in the past 2 years. And we are open to working with both Chamber members and non-Chamber members with this project. We're going to pause right now and do a quick poll at this point. We would love you to take a couple of seconds and just answer the following question. Have you worked with a post-secondary student at your current organization in the past 2 years? If you could take a couple of seconds to fill that out, we would appreciate it. All right, thank you. So it looks like most of the people have not worked with a student, post-secondary student. And for those who haven't, then we hope to provide you with more information and support so that you can start working with the students. For those who have been working with students, that's great, and we hope that you will continue that. So a couple of slides ago, I explained that the goal of the project, when I was talking about the goal of the project, I mentioned the term experiential learning. I wanted to clarify what we mean by that term so that we're all on the same page. According to the Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development, experiential learning supports students in getting hands-on learning that helps them transition to employment. It's an educational activity that is facilitated and supported through a college and university. Students participate in the workplaces or simulated workplaces where they're exposed to authentic demands and expectations. Students apply and expand on the program knowledge and skills that they have developed in their studies. And the goal is to improve the employability and the interpersonal skills of the students, which will then support them in their transition to the workplace. So why is experiential learning necessary? When students have the opportunity to work with a business, then they develop the skills, experience, and networks that better prepare them for their careers. This is important to businesses because those students will be more qualified for their roles in those businesses, companies, once they graduate. According to a 2016 report that was published by the Ontario Chamber of Commerce called Talent in Transition, the top cited challenge that employers were facing when recruiting staff was finding somebody with proper qualifications. Providing experiential learning opportunities for students will help address the skill gap that employers are often facing. With the change and advancements that happen in business, the skills that employers need are also changing. As cited in the Ontario University's 2017 report called Partnering for a Better Future for Ontario, it stated that Ontario needs a dynamic talent pipeline to remain competitive and satisfy the needs of tomorrow's workplaces. In their report, they also indicated that experiential learning is one of the key areas of focus that will help prepare the youth to meet the needs of employers. And finally, as part of the Ontario government's highly skilled workforce report that was released a couple of years ago, the government was moving towards having each post-secondary student have at least one experiential learning opportunity before they graduate. And this includes those students who are not in co-op, as well as those who are in co-op. Now that we know what experiential learning is and we know why it's important, let's talk about the business community's interest in participating. In 2015, the Waterloo Region Small Business Centre conducted a community consultation, and in that report, it was stated that small business owners and entrepreneurs see universities and colleges in Waterloo Region as untapped resources. They provide internship opportunities for business students, and they are a source of talent for small businesses as they grow. In July 2018, so just last month, the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce conducted a survey of businesses to get their feedback on working with post-secondary students. We got a great response to the survey, and we found that 44% of those who responded expressed a great interest in learning more about engaging with post-secondary students. So we know that experiential learning is important, and we know what it is, and we know that businesses are interested. So we need to talk about the obstacles that employers believe they face in working with post-secondary students. As part of the Chamber's survey that we conducted last month, we wanted to understand why businesses have not engaged with post-secondary students. Before we share the results of our survey, we'd like to understand the obstacles that you may have faced in working with post-secondary students. We're going to take another quick break for a poll. We would appreciate you taking a few seconds to answer the following question. What are the obstacles or reasons that you have encountered in not working with a post-secondary student? This is a multi-select question. Please choose all of the answers that apply to you. Great, thanks very much for taking the time to fill out that poll. So the results of the poll that we just did are quite interesting. First, we'll talk a little bit about what we found in this poll, and then we'll talk about what we found in the results of our survey. So it looks like the number one reason is I don't know how to connect with students. Then I'm not sure what work to give a student. I'm unaware of the opportunities. There's time constraints and financial constraints. And those are all pretty consistent with what we have heard in the survey that we conducted. In this particular poll that we just did in the webinar, we were only able to include 5 options. If there is another reason as to why you haven't worked with a post-secondary student and we didn't have that reason in the poll, then we would love to hear about it. We've included a section in the webinar survey for you to include this information. You'll receive the survey immediately after the webinar, and we would love to get your feedback if you have anything to add. So in terms of the results that we found in the survey that we conducted last month through the Chamber, the top reason was that businesses were not aware of the opportunities to work with students. The second reason was financial constraints. The third reason was not sure what work to give a student. Fourth reason was time constraints. And the fifth reason was not sure how to connect with students. So while the order of the reasons were a little different between the survey that we conducted in July and the poll that we just did in this webinar, I think they're all really important reasons that need to be addressed. Some of these reasons can be partially addressed through improving awareness and educating businesses. For example, in the survey results that we had from our July survey, the number one reason or obstacle was unaware of the opportunities. And many businesses know or have heard about the fact that there are co-op opportunities. In fact, in the survey, we found that 91% of respondents were aware of co-op opportunities. There was significantly less awareness about some of those other non-co-op opportunities available to students. We know that more information needs to be shared with businesses about what those other opportunities are. How can your business engage with post-secondary students? So most businesses know that they can hire a paid co-op student, and that is certainly an option. Some of the other non-co-op opportunities to work with students include projects, practicums, and placements. In terms of projects, many courses embed projects into their curriculum, and often these projects include working with a business. Those projects can range in duration between a couple of weeks and most of the semester. With projects that are embedded in the courses, it's usually a group of students that is partnered with a business. Not every course will have this kind of project work, but there are many courses that do have this kind of project work. In terms of placements and practicums, there are these are generally when a student would work with an employer or an organization for a shorter duration of time. That could be full-time, that can sometimes be part-time. So those are just a couple of the examples of non-co-op ways that employers can engage with students. Students will be available for co-op work terms or non-co-op experiential learning opportunities at different times during the school year, depending on their program. Not all programs and courses currently have these kinds of experiential learning options, but the numbers of opportunities are increasing. If you are interested in working with a student and you aren't sure what type of experiential learning might be a good fit for you, then we can talk about your opportunity and we can determine whether or not there's a fit. And just so you know, we will be talking about this particular topic in more depth in our next webinar. We're going to be focusing on the various experiential learning options, both co-op and not co-op, that are available at the University of Waterloo, Wilfrid Laurier University, and Conestoga College. The experiential learning opportunities available do differ school to school. So we're having a representative from each of those schools participate in the webinar, and they'll be available to provide an overview of the different opportunities that exist at each of their schools, and certainly they will be here to answer any questions that you have. If we return to the obstacles that businesses are facing when wanting to work with students, the second obstacle that was cited was financial constraints. And we know that co-op students are paid, and that rate of pay needs to adhere to the minimum wage legislation, and the pay range will vary depending on the program, the number of work terms, and there are other factors as well. Each school would have a pay range that they could provide an employer based on the program and that kind of thing. There are a number of tax credits and incentives that are available for employers to take advantage of that can greatly reduce the financial impact to an employer. The most popular tax credit is called the Ontario Co-op Education Tax Credit. Companies can claim 25% to 30% of expenditures, which does include pay. And that is up to a maximum of $3,000 per work placement. So small businesses can claim 30% of expenditures, which does include a co-op student rate of pay, up to a maximum of $3,000 per work placement. Those tax credits and incentives can be a really important source of information for employers when they are considering hiring a co-op student. And because of that, we will be holding a future webinar to provide more information on those tax credits and incentives for employers, so please stay tuned for that. In terms of going back to the obstacles in working for students, the third one was that employers don't know what work to give a student. So if you're interested in working with a student but you don't know what work you would give a student, then we are happy to chat further about that so that we can talk about what some of the options might be. I'm going to address the final two obstacles, which is time constraints and not knowing how to connect with students, in the next slide when I talk about how we're helping businesses. And based on the poll that we ran during this webinar, those are the two obstacles that seem to be the biggest obstacles for the people participating today. So we know that businesses are interested in working with students, and we know that two of the obstacles that they have faced is that they don't know how to connect with students and they don't have the time to figure it out. Through this project, we are helping businesses by doing the work to determine what are their options for working with students, and then providing them with a direct connection to the school. So in terms of the process, this is how it works. A small business and I would connect. We would talk, or we would meet face to face. I would get a better understanding of what the employer's interest is in the project. I would get a better understanding of what their needs are. During this discussion, we'll talk about what they're looking for in a student. If the employer has an idea of the work that they would like the student to do, then we will talk about the timing and the duration and the amount of help that they might need from a student. If you don't know what work you want to give a student, then we can talk about projects that have been on the back burner for you for a while. We can talk about extra help that you might need for an upcoming deadline. We can talk about just general assistance that you need in order to achieve your goals as a business. We'll also talk about whether or not you're interested in hiring a co-op student, or whether you are interested in working with a student or a group of students in another way, like a project. So once we have that initial conversation and we go through a bit of a needs assessment and I have an idea of what you're looking for, then I take that information that I gathered from you and I go and talk to the 3 post-secondary schools. So University of Waterloo, Wilfrid Laurier, and Conestoga College. And I talk to them about the potential opportunity and I see what options might be available at each of those schools for you to work with a student. Once I have that information, then I summarize it and I provide it back to the employer. It may require a little bit of back and forth between myself and the employer and the school in order to answer any kind of lingering questions. But once I have all of the information gathered, then I will summarize that and provide it to the employer for their review. Once the business has decided whether or not they want to proceed, then they let me know. If they do want to proceed, then they let me know what options or what option they would like to go with. Once they've done that, then I provide an introduction directly between the employer and the specific person or representative at the school that they will be working at. So kind of once I've made that connection, then the school will then contact the employer and they will continue on developing their relationship and so that the employer can engage with those students. I am still available here at the Chamber to provide support if needed, but once I make that connection, then the relationship continues between the employer and the school. So really, if we go back to those 2 obstacles that were kind of the biggest pain points for businesses, which is they don't know how to connect with students and they don't have the time, this project is meant to alleviate some of that. So we have, I've heard from businesses that, they're really interested in working with a post-secondary student, but there's 3 large institutions in this city or in this region, and they don't know which school to go to and what program to go to or what person to go to, and they don't have time to figure it out. So with this project, they can come to me. We can talk about what their options are. I can gather the information. Then I go and I do kind of all of that research and I look into everything and I gather all the information so that the employer doesn't have to spend their time doing that. And then we can talk about it again when I've summarized the data. We are only about 3 months into the project, but we have spoken with several employers and we've received some really positive feedback about the project so far. Examples of that feedback include statements like, we had one employer say, we didn't know how to go about connecting with schools about these opportunities. We had another employer say, we've tried to research how to work with post-secondary students in the past, but we don't have the time, and the bridge you're creating is really helpful. And a final example is, I would have no idea where to go or who to talk to. What I like about your project is that you do all the legwork and then provide me with the options that I have to work with students. So if you need some more convincing on the benefits of working with post-secondary students, we've listed a few here for you. They absolutely can add temporary resources to your organization that will enable you to be more productive. As Aparna mentioned, she is a co-op student that's been working with me on this project this summer. I have 3 co-op students that will be working with me this fall on this project that will help me be able to reach out to more businesses throughout the fall and the winter. So it's absolutely increasing my capacity by working with these co-op students. A second advantage is accessing the innovative ideas that students bring, and that includes the different technologies that they are aware of. So another example, Aparna introduced me to HubSpot. I had heard of it before, but I'd never used it. She had used it in previous co-op terms, and we've now implemented that particular platform for this project, and it's really helped us in keeping track of things. In terms of another advantage, it raises awareness of your organization and your industry. So the more you're engaging with students, if the students have a really great experience, then positive word of mouth is worth its weight in gold. So it's a really good advantage for you. And the final one is building a strong talent pipeline. So engaging with students can help your current talent challenges if you have any, but then they also work to build your talent pipeline for future hiring. So down the road, when you're looking to hire a full-time student, you can go back to the students who have worked with you in the past. They already know your business. They already know some of your processes. So the learning curve would be less steep at that point. So it really helps to build your talent pipeline, and then you can use the people in your talent pipeline to then try to get referrals for other people. We just published our third blog post yesterday, and it talks about the benefits that employers have found with working with students. In the blog post, we have profiled 2 local small businesses, Leslie Warren Design Group and Little Mushroom Catering. Both of these businesses have worked with students for several years. I would encourage you to read that post to get some additional employer insights into the benefits of working with students. Excuse me. This concludes my part of the presentation. We are really excited about this initiative where we are helping connect the business community with post-secondary students. At this point, we would love to answer your questions, and I'm going to turn it back to Aparna.
All right. If you haven't already, please take a few seconds to leave your questions in the question box, and we will be answering them shortly.
All right, we've got a couple of questions so far, so we will start answering those questions, and then if you think of any other questions, feel free to submit them.
Yep. So our first question is, can I work with more than one school?
So the answer is yes. It's entirely up to you how many schools you would like to work with. If we go back to the process where I understand your needs and then I go to the schools to gather all the information, if there are options for you to work with all 3 schools and you want to work with all 3 schools, or at least put the opportunity out to all 3 schools and see kind of what comes back, then that's up to you. If you are in a position to hire a co-op student and you want to post at all 3 schools, then you can do that too. When I posted for Aparna's job, I posted at all 3 schools, and I got applicants from all 3 schools and then interviewed the ones that I thought were the best fit. So you can work with as many schools as you would like.
Do I need to be a registered business to be able to benefit from this program?
So I might need some clarification in terms of if you're referring to whether or not you need to be a chamber member, the answer is no. If you're referring to whether or not your business needs to be kind of registered with the province, that's something that I would need to double check on, so we could probably have a conversation offline about that.
Another question that we have is, I don't have an office space as my business is online. Is remote work an option?
It is an option. Again, it does depend on the school. It depends on the opportunity. It depends on the program. So I'd love to give you kind of yes, no answer, but the answer is kind of it depends. So what I would do is I would chat with you about the opportunity to see exactly what your needs are and how long you need a student, etc. And then I would chat with the schools about what that opportunity might be and get their thoughts on it. And then I would come back to you with the options.
How can I set up an offline call with you?
I think we have your contact information, so I can send you an email, but if you would like to send me an email, then my email address is amitchell, so that's AMITCHELL at greaterkwchamber.com.
It will also be listed on the next slide. Another question that we have is, how long does it take to connect with a student?
So that can be varied. It depends. So the conversations that I've been having the last couple of months, I've talked to some employers and have lots of different possible opportunities for them to work with students. So now I'm in the process of going and I'm talking to the schools about what the different options might be. And what I'm finding is if a business is interested in working with a co-op student, for example, then the co-op opportunities are listed and they're fairly clear. When a business is interested in working with a student in a non-co-op way, so a project or a placement, that kind of thing, I'm finding that I'm needing to do a little bit more digging with the schools to see what the opportunities are. I am finding that there tends to be a lot of opportunity happening in the winter, so the winter term. So if you are interested in having somebody now, then when I talk to the schools, that I would tell them that, and then I would get more information from the schools about what the timing is. If you want somebody now and a student isn't available until the winter, then I would then bring that information back to you and then you can make that decision.
And our final question is, who do you work with at the schools to get this information?
So because we are working in partnership with the University of Waterloo, Wilfrid Laurier University, and Conestoga College, all three schools are on board in terms of helping us out with this project. We have a committee that meets regularly, and there's representation from each of those schools on the committee. So my initial contact with each of those schools is somebody on the leadership team within Co-op and Career Services or Work Integrated Learning. I will go to them initially with a possibility, and then they will direct me to somebody on their staff, and then I talk to the appropriate people. As I'm going through the project, I am meeting more and more of the staff at the school, so I can go directly to them if I have a particular possibility.
All right. So we would like to thank you for attending this webinar. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns after this webinar, or are interested in getting involved with the project, please feel free to contact us at our emails, which are listed on the slide. If you'd like to learn more, please visit our webpage or follow us on social media, which are also listed on the screen, to stay up to date with what's happening at the Chamber and what's happening with the project. If you'd like to post about the initiative, please use the hashtag Access Student Talent. And our next webinar will be happening in 2 weeks on August 30th. We will have representatives from each post-secondary school present to discuss available options at each school, and we would love to see you there. This is just a quick reminder that there is a feedback survey launching right after this webinar. Please fill it out, as we would love to hear from you and see where we can improve. Thank you so much.
Thanks for attending.
Bye-bye.